you. Yeah. Hey. Do we have sound?
If I can please ask that everybody takes their seats so our panelists can get started. Thank you.
All right, welcome. If you don't know it yet, you will find out this is the most important panel at Doers. Because well done, Cyprus, you are on a digital growth journey, and I'm super impressed coming from a small digital country as Denmark. But you guys is also, as it was said in the former panel, you're part of a wider world, you're part of EU, and also a global tech world. And I think it was also mentioned that, I believe most of us know that we're getting beaten right now by the Americans and the Asians. So what is the path? How do we move forward for Europe? That is a very important question that we need to fix. I want to just, go a few years back to set the scene. So we as an organization in Danish entrepreneurs for the past 10 years realized that 80% of the digital regulation we have, and that counts Cyprus as well, comes out of Brussels. So we pretty much also geared 80% of our policy work towards Brussels. And I think that is a key recognition. We had the tech czar for more or less 10 years in Brussels, Vestager. She was the executive vice president of the Commission. And she talked about regulation and acceleration. And she said, once we regulate everything, we will have a safe and sound and certain platform for innovation. That was the belief in the Commission for at least 10 years. One example is the AI Act that came in 2018, and which is not finished yet. And I think that we all know what happened with the investment and the innovation within AI. So I think it's a very relevant question. Can we accelerate and can we regulate at the same time? Then we had, next month, it's 2-year anniversary that we have the MEP election. We realized also in September we got the Draghi report, which pretty much echoed, I think, what startups have been saying, that we're getting beaten. All the growth is happening outside of Europe. Draghi said the same, but suddenly policymakers started to listen. In September, a very important report came as well from the IMF, pointing to the fact that we have an internal tariff in the EU of 110% on services and 44% on goods, pointing to the fragmentation of what we do, and also saying that if we could improve this by 10%, we would increase the GDP of the whole Eurozone by 7%, which is substantial. And that has been the endeavor. And I want to, start the discussion by, I was happy to see that Move Fast, Do Things. Now we celebrate soon 2 years after the Draghi report. We meet with startup organizations from all over Europe. And the conclusion from our last meeting in Lisbon was that slow is the new stupid. So that's pretty much it. How can we move Europe forward? How can we close the gaps we have to Asia and the US that has only widened for the past 2 years? And I have an amazing panel. If you want, you can present yourself when you get the first question. I would like to go to you, Kyriaki. You took over the presidency of the EU after Denmark, and there's been changing priorities. It's been hectic. What would you point to, like the big achievements and your impression of working with this? Your job is ending in pretty much a month,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So
So can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. So good morning, everybody. I'm Kyriaki Pantziarou from the Ministry of Digital Policy. I'm the director of the Directorate of Digital Policy and Technologies. And yes, it's been almost 6 months that we have the presidency. We are still 1.5 months, and we are concluding the presidency. And we see that after 2 years of, almost 2 years of the Draghi report, there is a shift also from the Commission, the realization that we have to live from the regulate first to competitiveness and to accelerate investments in Europe. Otherwise, we will stay behind. There is a competition from US, there is a competition of China, and Europe has to accelerate and not stick on just regulation. So by saying that, there is, in our presidency, we have in our plate the digital rule book, which was expecting for 1.5 years after the Draghi report. And we were, let's say, lucky to start the discussion, the important discussion on different files that affect indirectly the economy. So it's not just regulation for the regulators, but now regulation is affecting each and everyone, the economy, SMEs, consumers, so it's affecting, it's a matter of everybody. And in our plate, we have the Digital Network Act, which is a huge file. We start the conversation during our presidency, but it will take longer to conclude. And this regulation is affecting infrastructure, 5G, 6G, the investment there in the infrastructure, the fiber to the home. So this is a file that it's about infrastructure. Then we have the business wallet file, which is for SMEs to accelerate and to simplify the transaction between SMEs and between SMEs and the government. So this is the Business Wallet Act. And during our presidency is one of the ambitions that we have to finish in general approach, which means that the files that was opened during our presidency to achieve a consent by all the member states and agree on the different terms of the file and take it to the parliament. So if we achieve that, and this is the goal that will come in June, it's for us, it's a huge target. And the other one is the omnibus package, the simplification. And this omnibus package includes the AI Act, so a simplification there, a simplification on the different data acts, is the Data Act, the Data and Governance Act, the GDPR. There we have a huge progress on the AI proposal, and we have achieved as a presidency to go to the parliament in June and vote only on the AI package. The rest, the data is still an ongoing discussion. And the last is the implementation of the AI Act, the DSA and the DMA, that this implementation affects also the market.
Okay, I know we will dig more down to the digital omnibus. I want to jump to you, Nikolas. You are a founder, but you also represent a lot of SMEs and other founders. So from a founder perspective, how does the compliance situation look like in Europe?
We discussed about touching on this. Thank you everyone. Thank you for having me here. And I wanted to touch on the aspect of compliance being scattered throughout Europe. So, and we heard from Antonis previously saying that founders should aim for the European market as a whole rather than focusing on their local geographies. I think the single market is a a great opportunity for removing tariffs, but still we have a long way to go from removing friction itself. And I think there's two pillars on approaching this. So the first one is, I think we still have room for improvement on the cultural aspect of it. So a founder from Cyprus trying to open Germany, for example, as a new market needs a German council, a German entity, a German compliance officer, whereas because we compare ourselves with the US or the Asian market, founders in Europe look to the US with much more ease there, because the cultural appetite for shopping for SaaS or shopping for AI solutions, there's a unified culture there. So I think the first pillar is the cultural aspect. And then to touch on your point on compliance, yes, we do have all these umbrella regulations as an EU, as the European family as a whole, but still the implementation of it is fragmented from state to state, and the current status of each regulation, being GDPR, now the Omnibus, the AI Act, or whatever, is kind of fragmented there, whereas in the US you have a more federal approach to it. So I think the point which I wanted to touch on, the accelerate or regulate, has to do with sequencing as well. So the Commission has to equip states with the implementation tools as well, rather than just the regulation as a whole. And these things have to come in a right sequencing for member states to adopt. And this will make it easier for founders as well.
So from a founder's perspective, in 2 years, have there been any change?
The last 2 years? Or
yeah, the last 2
how
years.
is it going to be
the
next years? Yes, lots of changes, but I would say now it has become more complicated as well for us, because there are so many regulations indirectly affecting us as well. So yesterday I was on a panel regarding DORA. So we're not regulated under DORA per se, but our clients are indirectly affected from DORA. So we have to be prepared for that as well. So there are spillover effects for regulation, and SMEs and small firms do not have the compliance budgets to digest that. So I will couple that to what I said before. So the implementation of the regulation has to come as with the announcement of the regulation as well, and provide founders and SMEs with the whole package of implementing that regulation, the SDKs, the all the things, and we can touch on the AI Act as well on that regarding the delays. So yeah.
So one of our great exports from Europe is our unicorns. That's like how it's been historically. Also in case of Cyprus, in Denmark, most our unicorn left for the US. From a Google perspective, Eugenia, do you see any change in Europe closing the gap to the US?
Okay, now it works. First of all, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for not speaking while we are trying to speak and listen to each other. We have been struggling a bit up here, to be honest. So I would really appreciate a little bit of calm in the room. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Kyriaki. I know we have been discussing a lot lately about everything that goes on in Brussels, and this is because it is important for everyone, and let's say for the survival of Europe. And let's go back to Draghi, where we started this discussion. You know, he sent a letter last week, and first of all, what he said is that now the 800 billion that was, new growth that was required for Europe's, let's say, competitiveness for the next years now has risen to 1.2 trillion. So, and this is because the gap between Europe and the US is growing. So I would say that, yes, the ambition is there, the intention is there, but it looks like Europe is missing something. There is something we're not doing right, because the gap is growing, and we don't see the results coming from the policies that have been adopted this far to be working as a positive. Just to give you a very tangible example, yesterday Google announced during our big event in California, the I/O, some amazing products. The internal joke, and it's not a joke, while we were watching the live stream, was, well, we were wondering how many of these products will we actually be able to launch in Europe in the foreseeable future before they become, expired, because, next year we will have other products and other products. There are still European countries that, because of regulation, we were not able to launch what the rest of the world is enjoying right now, and this is AI overviews, which is, by the way, our search AI, empowered tool. So in France, they don't have it. They have the old Google search experience. So I think also in Spain. So, we can understand that both for the citizens, the end users, but also for companies, it's very, very hard to compete when there are barriers all the time in adopting the newest technology. And going back to Draghi, I think his latest letter and latest pledge was really, really clear. And going into this point, he said, on regulation, maybe we should focus more on how we can leverage US companies as well and spread this technology and make it available for European companies to grow, instead of trying so hard to create, through regulation, barriers and what so-called European champions, because it's not working. It's clearly not working. And, well, we will have the time to discuss more.
Yeah, I think we should drill down a little bit into the digital omnibus. It's going on now. There are some critical meetings coming up in the council, I understand. And one thing that we see in the digital omnibus is regulating cookie fatigue. And I believe it's all the cookie pop-ups that we have seen. That is also an invention in the EU, but I think most people understand that it doesn't really work for privacy. I want maybe just to stay with you, Eugenia. So there are currently solutions that people like Google should be in control of the cookie consent, and we have members. When we talk to them, that worries that they will lose their relationship, their cookie relationship with their customers, meaning that they would not be able to remember, do they drink red wine or white wine? Are they extra large or extra small? But we also hear that being able to target customers, the acquisition cost is one of the key metrics in running up our startup. I would like to understand the perspective from businesses, from you, Eugenia, and from Nikolas, and then maybe Kyriaki, if you can try to tell us how you balance the different priorities in this.
Okay, look, just to take it, the broader picture, the digital omnibus had a very clear goal, I think, and this was to simplify regulation and avoid adding and somehow moderate all these different layers of regulations to make the life easier for basically SMEs, SMBs to operate and innovate in Europe. Now, with this process, we have managed in Europe to open again all the files and all the discussions. So now we are at a critical point, and yes, congratulations for the AI Act, by the way. I think it is important because we all need this certainty at some point, that things are closing and we move forward and we know what to do. So this was important, and I think the AI Act stroke a balance. It's something we can work with. Now, the digital omnibus and the cookie fatigue. From our, let's say, listening to the market, the feedback we are receiving, and also studies, with the consumers in Europe, it's not yet clear if there is actually cookie fatigue. Okay, I'm starting from that point. So we are also challenging the fact that there is a cookie fatigue because, okay, no one likes that, but again, it is like a checkpoint, and we all feel as consumers that we comply with something that is necessary in order to, have a personalized experience, which is also important. Now, let's say there is a cookie fatigue and we need to solve it. It is a very complicated discussion, and what we are suggesting is that it needs more time because we don't have tangible impact assessment on what we are trying to solve and how we can solve it in an effective way that it doesn't destroy and it doesn't have a huge impact on advertising and on digital economy. Because what we have seen so far with the proposed regulation, and I don't want to go into technicalities, it is a very difficult issue to, I know everyone is struggling with that. We see almost 50% drop in personalized advertising, meaning the people who have the products to advertise will not be able to reach their audience. Then the advertisers are also losing, and then websites and publishers especially will have a huge impact because they are making money from advertising. So what they will do? They will start gating content, especially high-quality content. So the overall free, good quality content will be will be less. So it's not just a matter of economy; it's also a matter of information and democracy and access to to quality content online. Just to name a few of the problem. Plus, what we expect is that websites will still try to pursue consumers to accept digital and personalized advertising. So what will happen is that we will have a new kind of banners popping up, inviting users to accept personalized advertising. So they will try to lure them back, let's say. So again, we will have this experience for the end user of many banners and many pop-ups and maybe even more subscriptions online to access content. So I don't really know who is benefiting from all of that in the end.
So maybe a brief perspective from the SMEs.
Very briefly, because I'm cautious of time as well. So just as a headline, the Digital Omnibus, I think, is a great initiative. Second headline, it would be very interesting to check with SMEs in Cyprus how many SMEs in Cyprus know what the Digital Omnibus is. I bet very, very few, so the percentage is much smaller, and this amplifies the gap between the EU and the actual market, the SMEs. Now, regarding the cookie fatigue, I will tend to agree with Eugenia in a different perspective, though. For SMEs, cookies are critical, especially in retargeting. So we don't have the budget of putting ourselves out there in the global stage. So retargeting is one of the key points of promoting and finding people that came in your website. So kind of removing that. And one of the proposed solutions, as you said, has been to migrate that to the browser, not just Google, but Google controls the majority of the browser market. I don't know how this could help SMEs. I don't see how this could help SMEs. And I tend to agree with Eugenia that we will try to find other ways to convince the users to kind of create an overlay on top of that. So I will tend to agree that, not disagree that cookie fatigue is real, but I don't know that removing it on a regulation perspective, will actually remove it from the practical aspect of the day-to-day. So just to close and couple that with my previous point, so the sequencing of regulation has to be a bit more forward-thinking. So if we had more time back on the GDPR implementation to see how things would unfold, maybe we could have avoided coming back and fixing things. So yeah, this is just a general.
Okay, Kyriaki, you probably heard most of the arguments before. Could you tell what is at stake, but also maybe touch upon the time schedule, because it seems that some interest wants to rush this more than others. Could you open a little bit up on that as well?
Okay. The cookie thinks it's something that it's of, let's say, priority because it's affecting consumer, but also it's affecting the SMEs and the companies. And it's been discussed under the proposal of data. This proposal under the digital omnibus is something that we don't plan to close in the Cyprus presidency. So the time frame, I think, is for the Ireland to make the plan there. It's something that they will take from us and continue. It's not like the AI proposal that we have concluded. So, and from my side, I see that since the cookies has been recognized as an issue to simplify, then something is there that should be simplified for the consumers and also for the companies. So we should find the right balance in order to keep the protection and not weaken the protection of the consumers and the trust that they have on the online services and their data to be able to control their data. But from the other hand, we don't want to make things more complicated for SMEs and also for the users to have a user-friendly experience when they go online. So it's important, the decisions, to keep this balance.
But you know, from my understanding, the omnibuses came out of the competitiveness discussion, and the paradox is that we might end up hurting the competitiveness of, say, startups that are competing with, could be in London or wherever around us. So, and I also experience when we go to Brussels, the privacy organizations, they are very aggressive on this one. Is there not a risk that we get the balance right and we hurt competition in this? And you know, I also heard proposals to put the consent under legitimate interest in the GDPR, or that would also be simple but very business friendly. I sense that the privacy front is very vocal on this topic.
Okay, I cannot. I mean, because it's an ongoing discussion, and we have to be, let's say, as we are saying, as a presidency, an honest broker. I'm not much allowed to say a lot and take a clear position on that. When we will not have the presidency and the Ireland will take the lead, then it's obvious that also as a government we will have a clear position on these issues.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So maybe we need to wrap up. A few final words. Let's look ahead. Impact assessment, or what is, you know, next step in order to finalize the digital omnibus?
Actually, I didn't want to spend more time on the digital omnibus.
Okay.
I think we
covered it.
Yes, and what I would like to say as final, you know, remarks is that the numbers we saw earlier on Cyprus growth and, you know, the investment on ICT and this forward-looking direction and vision of the government, it is impressive. Okay, it's a lot of work put there, and I was lucky to meet, with the president last year, and Kyriaki was also there with Google's president in San Francisco, and we really sensed this strong ambition, and we hope that this will also be mirrored in policies and forward-looking, direction of the actual, work that the government is doing in Brussels and here locally to support this growth and this new economy that is emerging here on the island and this ambition. And I would like to close with that. And we are happy that we can always have someone to, very open ears, open-minded people to reach out to and have a frank and open discussions, even on difficult, issues, because I think this is the most important thing, that we can sit at the table and talk.
Yeah. So I think that's a wrap. Thanks a lot, Eugenia, for your perspective, and Nikolas from the SME side, and obviously Kyriaki for bringing us closer to the presidency. Thank you very much.
Thank you.